Welcome to another episode of Four Guys Talking About AI. We got three guys here today. John Gerard couldn't be with us today. We got Neil Polachek and Greg Sterling and myself. Hey guys,
Hi,
what's
Andy.
up?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, doing great, doing great. Well, we got a stacked episode today. We're going to start with ChatGPT 5. Big news. They just released their new AI model. It's sharper, more accurate. It feels more like a chatbot, or less like a chatbot, more like a collaborator. So we'll dig into that. Then Google drops Genie 3. Genie 3 lets you step inside AI-generated worlds with real physics and weather and get a peek into the future of training AI models in simulated environments. Super cool, really interesting kind of stuff. In policy news, Illinois becomes the first state to ban AI therapy after some high-tech profile chatbot disasters. We'll unpack what that all means for mental health and tech. And over in Cupertino, Apple is quietly building its own ChatGPT rival with an answers team. It's a small team aiming to provide web searching, conversational assistance right on your iPhone. Can they build it? That's the question, or should they buy? So we'll get into that. And then our last story of the day is the Washington Post breaks down how big tech's $350 billion AI spending spree is now propping up US GDP. And what happens if they run out of fuel? So let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about ChatGPT 5. The idea with this is that it's not just a little bit smarter. The idea that they're positioning ChatGPT 5 for is that it becomes a collaborator with you. The hallucinations have gone down dramatically, and we'll jump into it here. What do you guys think?
Well, I'm excited to use it, and I'm most excited about the hallucinogenic. I'm most excited about the hallucinogenic properties of ChatGPT. The drugs are kicking in now. No, I'm excited about the reduction in hallucinations. I have had some terrible hallucination problems with ChatGPT lately. I won't go into them in detail, but it's just been really kind of shocking. Completely making up stuff, getting stuff wrong repeatedly. It's been very frustrating. So I'm really looking forward to that. This morning, though, I was trying to use it, and it wasn't doing anything for me. It was just blank page, spinning and spinning and spinning, and nothing. And you think that that's an issue with my computer, but hopefully I'll be able to get into it a little bit later today.
You know how new models oftentimes are glitchy. So these first few weeks, I wouldn't be surprised if people experience stuff like that. And that's happened with the other models in the past. What strikes me as interesting is that it has more natural conversations from my experience, and then also has a memory that's attached to it in a little bit of a different way. Or they're saying, I haven't really experienced that yet, and then also their focus is around real world stuff, right? So like sorting your email, planning your week, or even drafting documents for you in a little bit of a different way.
You say that more task oriented?
That's kind of how they're positioning it, right? So they're really leaning into this agentic kind of new phase of AI. And I think if you take a cue from Claude and how Claude has gone deep into the software development arena, and then you've got tools like Lovable that are creating full web experiences, I think they're trying to claim some of that space here. And they're definitely promoting software development as a big part of ChatGPT 5's new capabilities that it didn't have before.
Isn't it the case, though, that developers are pretty attached to Claude as sort of as a group, if we can make a generalization like that? That's my understanding. I'm not a developer.
They built a lot of credibility with that. And Claude is really, I think Claude even created the whole MCP, kind of concept, and really embraced that in software development. So, connecting it with GitHub, connecting it with Google Drive and other systems that are commonly used. being able to connect those systems and then tell it what you want to do, connecting it with N8N, for example, or other systems where you can just tell it what you want it to do, and it'll create this JSON output that actually creates that workflow. A lot of that capability is what Claude, really just shined in its capabilities. So brought a lot of credibility with software developers. Whereas I think ChatGPT is really used a lot more for, conversational kind of stuff or advice, and these kinds of rewriting documents and those kinds of things.
One of the things that I want them to do, which I don't think they've done with 5, is to create a better organizational system for your past conversations, because there's just an undifferentiated list. And if you could organize that better, then you could go back into those things more quickly and be more efficient.
Maybe you can ask it to do that.
I don't know if it has.
We have a project section in
Yeah.
ChatGPT.
Yeah, but I'm not disciplined enough to do that. And the difference between a project and some quick thing that I do is not always distinct.
I feel like that list that they have in the left rail is like the only way I'm able to make sense of that is by using the search bar and just typing in some keywords that are relevant to the past search. But I think you're right. I think, the natural kind of expression of that would be, we'll create a word cloud of this, or create put it in some sort of like file format structure so that I can
just something to organize it, because the longer you use it, I mean, in Sam Altman's fantasy, we're going to be using these tools for years and years and years and years and years.
Yeah.
That will require some sort of more advanced organizational system to access previous information.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's not ChatGPT 5, but I'm excited about it. And the great thing from a user standpoint, if it works well, is that you don't have to make any choices about which model to use. I mean, this is the big problem with Gemini, is that it's like, which one do I use? And they have different uses for they're different purposes. And so now you don't have to do that. It's a unified system.
Yeah. Yeah. So, obviously more on this as we unpack it. It just came out yesterday, so we'll be digging into it. We'll be talking about it on future episodes. Let's shift gears here. So also new releases. Google released Genie 3. Genie 3 is a little bit different though. It's a text prompt kind of interface, but instead of getting your text back, what it does is it creates these generated visuals, this whole environment where you can live in a 3D world, and you can experiment with it, and you can influence it and be an actor in it, or have an object, or put yourself on a hang glider and go through the Golden Gate Bridge if you want to, and tell it that you want to do that. And then you can even say, I want to use my arrows on my keyboard to go left or right, and it'll render it for you in real time, just like a video game would, except the difference is that it's doing it spontaneously in real time. And so why this matters, I think, is because it's not just another AI demo. It's a genuine step towards AI systems that can understand and train within a simulated environment. So, we've been hearing a lot about how robots and robotics are this kind of next phase that are coming up. This becomes kind of like the OS for those robots to learn proximity and what's around you, and and how it would have a relativity within a space. What do you guys think about this stuff?
You're speechless. Well, I think
I don't follow that stuff enough.
Well, I think the obviously I'm not a developer, as I said, and my technical insight into this is limited, but it's pretty cool. I mean, we talked before the session started about sort of a Google Maps version of this, or spontaneous like creation of a kind of a real time mapping experience that would be more fluid than the current maps experience. I mean, or urban planning, or architecture, whatever. There's a number of different sort of use cases, it seems like, and it's pretty interesting. I mean, I think the video game industry is going to be really changed by all of this kind of stuff pretty dramatically. I mean,
That's where it strikes me to have some really big impacts. And that's a expensive business. Lots of engineers. And, I'm not a gamer, but it's a huge industry that I don't spend a lot of time thinking about. It's massive. It's a massive industry.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about this from a user experience is, like Greg, you said this before we started the show, is that no two games are going to be the same. It'll spontaneously create an environment for you that's different every time. So that is compelling.
That means the games don't get stale. Think about that.
Right.
Exactly.
So you could have one, you could have a video rendering of Dungeons and Dragons that's always unpredictable. It says
Or
I'm
call
just
to action.
or whatever. Right. I mean, I'm looking at a statistic that says in 2024, video game industry generated almost 190 billion in revenue.
Yes.
So it's a really, really big industry.
It's a really big business.
And this will probably bring costs way, way down. I mean, think about Minecraft, how huge that is. And this
Totally. And Roblox, and that's like 8-bit, kind of rendering. Imagine, being able to render true video spontaneously, or just like you mentioned in a Google Maps environment, or just a Maps environment in general, to have like a digital twin of a city based on the data that's there, so that if you're doing some vacation planning or what have you, instead of just clicking around in Google Maps to render the next step down the street, and then have the fuzzy rendering, come into clear. This just does it for you in real time. You can literally walk through the city that you want to potentially visit. I mean, a lot of really interesting implications.
real estate, obviously, commercial, residential real estate, a lot of
Great
stuff.
use case. Yeah.
I mean, way before Meta was fixated on AI, they were focused on virtual reality, right? Which was going to be the new thing. And so this is kind of a
They're probably picking up some of the pieces from that failure and putting it into this.
Well, right. So this could be a different version of that, where you're creating sort of new social networks like Roblox, where people are interacting in an environment that's changing, and where people maybe have some input on how can shape or collaborate on shaping that environment. I mean, it remains to be seen, but there are a lot of interesting possibilities.
Well, and I mean, if you forecast out a few years, and this big push that Meta has, and all the others, Google and Apple will soon too, with glasses, that not only will just be the Meta glasses that are cameras now, but that will be a full computer screen AR, kind of experiences. You can see how this converges in a few years, these worlds, so that you can create these really compelling experiences. I mean, we're all going to be like in the movie Cocoon at some point. It sounds like, or Avatar rather.
Cocoon. I was going to say that's like, I don't remember.
We won't have to leave our cocoon.
Avatar, we're in a cocoon, is what I meant. Yeah,
go to Rome without having to get on an airplane.
Or the dark version is the Matrix, of course.
Yeah. So anyway, it's very interesting what's coming, and especially in the robotics world, I can see how it becomes like the training OS for a lot of those new robotics that'll be hitting the market here. So more on Genie 3 as we go. Let's move on to our next topic, therapy and AI. So Illinois just became the first state to outright ban AI from delivering therapy. Governor Pritzker signed the Wellness and Oversight of Psychological Resources Act, slapping $10,000 fines on any chatbot offering mental health treatment without clinician oversight. So, wow.
So I think it's just a nonsense reach. The thing is that if you put in a statement or a query into some chatbot, it is actually it's looking at thousands of records and actual therapists' information to pull back a result. So how is that not legitimate therapy? I mean, I thought it was a narrower law, and then Greg made it clear that it is a much broader law.
Well, so let's explain it real quickly. It prohibits two things. It prohibits the use of AI as a diagnostic tool by therapists. They can't incorporate it into their actual therapeutic practice, meaning they can't use it as a part of the therapy. Then, as Neil has been discussing, it prohibits the use of any chatbot or app as a therapy substitute where a professional is not involved. So essentially, it's banning any kind of AI therapy. Just to clarify that.
It clearly was funded by the therapists union,
trade association,
whatever they are, and it just strikes me that there's so much good that could come from it, from allowing the masses to use these tools for improving their mental health. And now we're going to put a governor on it to say only those people who can afford actual in-person therapy or online therapy with a human can actually get benefit from all this. And it just strikes me as a massive overreach on the part of government to try and regulate something that, it's the first step in an industry being deconstructed, and that's going to happen with a lot of these things. And where does the government come in and say you can't do this? And how do they even oversee it and regulate it? In a practical way. Oh, I'm sitting in the Chicago airport and I query ChatGPT about some mental health issue that I'm struggling with on my way back to California. Is that illegal now?
They're going after the vendors more than they are the individuals, because they won't be able to enforce.
Well, so I can't make a query while I'm sitting in the Chicago airport, but I can make one in California?
Yes, essentially. In theory, everybody is prohibited from doing therapy involving an AI bot of any kind. But states have no jurisdiction, notwithstanding all the stuff that's going on with birth control and abortion and so on and so forth. States have no jurisdiction outside of their physical borders, so they can't impose laws on people that aren't within the state. But they're not going to go after individuals.
About how preposterous it is, though. And what does that say? But okay, let's talk about from the provider side. Oh, query. I got to find where this query is coming from, the location of it. Oh, I'm sorry. You're sitting in the state of Illinois. I cannot respond.
Well, they can use IP address to which is an imperfect location identifier, but they can, I mean, there are things that can be done. I agree that it is an overbroad. There's overreach here. I don't think the concerns about AI therapy are totally unfounded. I think there's some reason to be concerned that in some cases somebody could get bad advice, or somebody who's really vulnerable could
get bad advice from a crappy therapist, Greg, in person.
That is true. And I will say, even if it's not a psychologist, a psychiatrist, in my opinion, are some of the worst violators, because they'll med people up in ways
that's their whole business.
It's their whole business. So they're incentivized to provide medications. And that's where that changes the physical structure.
And wait, so for mental issues in Illinois, we can't use AI for diagnosis, but a physician can still use AI for a physical diagnosis. Yes. And when will they put in a law that says the physician can't go use AI for something? And where's the physician and where's the psychiatrist and the mental therapist, the therapist? Like, when are they going to outlaw psychiatrists from
Well,
using it.
I'm not going to be a defender of this because I think it's overbroad. I do think that there are some cases that probably prompted this, and there may be an economic, there may be some lobbying behind the scenes among therapists who feel that their livelihood is at risk. There's a distinction between a doctor using AI to get additional information to support a diagnosis, and I mean, there really isn't if you're just talking about diagnosis, but the concern is that the real concern is these vendors that are going to develop apps that people are going to use without any involvement of a clinician at all. That's the real concern, I think, here. I don't think that they're so
But
concerned about.
but those apps are learning from mental health professionals. It's not just making it up.
I agree with you that this is a valuable tool to expand therapy access to people. I mean, I think this is an illustration.
Is going to try and ride into the White House on this thing? I don't think so.
This is an illustration of how it's problematic when government gets involved in trying to regulate technology, because it's often a ham-handed or blunt approach that isn't calibrated to the harm that they're trying to prevent. And I think this is an illustration of that.
Totally.
It's also ripe for cat and mouse, right? Like you said, Neil, on a practical basis, how is anybody going to enforce this? And there may be some like sensational, headlines that come of this, but I think on an everyday basis, I don't see how it's enforceable. And what kind of cost does that have to the taxpayers in Illinois who are going to have to pay for some kind of law enforcement of this? I mean,
right. And think about, look, we know that not all mental health professionals are great. I'm sure there has been a suicide based on a conversation a person had with a mental health professional in person. It did get written up in the newspapers and, AI therapy session leads to suicide. I mean, it seems so reactive at such an early stage in this that it's just, I find it, such a reach. But I'm done. I now need to go ask Chat.
See, yeah, you need to go into therapy yourself, I think, to work through some of those anger issues that you seem to be showing.
100%.
All right, well, let's change gears. So Apple has a new answers team, supposedly trying to compete with ChatGPT. Feels a little bit like, little too late, little too little. And ChatGPT is on version 5 here that they just released. They are leaning heavily into talent and stealing talent from Apple, as is Meta and others. So how does this play out for Apple? Greg, you had some ideas on this before when we were talking about it.
So Mark Gurman at Bloomberg wrote this report that said they're developing this answers team. It's going to work on a, quote, stripped down rival to ChatGPT, and we'll answer questions and do some of the same things that ChatGPT does. So it's effectively a ChatGPT rival and a kind of rival to Google search, because many of the informational questions that you would ask Google that you might ask Siri and not get answers to today would theoretically be answered by this. So beyond that, we don't know anything. As you say, Apple has struggled to really kind of move forward with AI. They've had a bunch of missteps. They've made some promises that have gone unfulfilled, like an improved Siri. They've sort of extended the timeline for delivering that. And they are losing researchers. They're losing key AI employees. I think they've lost something like 4 in a month to Meta, which is aggressively trying to poach people from other companies with sports celebrity-like contracts of astronomical amounts of money, millions and millions of dollars. So Apple is going to lose its Google payments for default search. Google has been paying billions of dollars a year to Apple to be the default search engine on the iPhone. That's been a big deal for Google. It's been a big deal for Apple. The court is probably going to kill that. That, combined with all the competitive pressure and investor expectations in particular that Apple has to deal with, forces them to take some more dramatic steps. Tim Cook said on their last earnings call that they would be open to M&A. We talked about that already. But with this brain drain and with their sort of unimpressive efforts in the past, there's a real question about whether they can actually deliver against this kind of idea to, ambition to create this ChatGPT-like experience on the iPhone. And at a certain point, I mean, the iPhone, in my opinion, is still a lot better experience than Android devices. But at a certain point, it may start to hit their bottom line as people sort of choose other things rather than the iPhone because it's perceived to be behind the times or clunky or just can't deliver the kind of experience that people are starting to expect.
There's a lot of talk about these wearables that will be this kind of new generation. I imagine,
especially by Mark Zuckerberg.
Glasses are obviously the big thing. Amazon recently bought a company called Bee, which is it listens. It's always listening, which is creepy, in my opinion. But I don't need something listening all the time and then beaming it back up to Amazon so they can sell me stuff. But that's their play. ChatGPT and Johnny Ive just did their $4.5 billion deal. So something's going to come out of that space. And when you think about these kinds of things, what is Apple's play? Where's their real differentiation other than the iPhone? And from a software perspective, they're going to have to really place a flag, a big flag, and go, this is where we're going. So
I think buying something.
It seems like that would be the natural path. They just announced this week $100 billion investment in manufacturing in the U.S. So big commitment on the manufacturing side. There's going to have to be some sort of AI play that they pony up some cash for coming up here soon. And
what they really need is some great people and put their heads down and build a product. And if they're constantly having to deal with not turnover, but employees being stolen, that creates enormous instability internally, and even the fear of that creates a big problem. And so, creates distraction for the employees, creates problems for Tim Cook and his executive team, creates problems with continuity and momentum. So, Siri, which was the pioneer, way back whenever they bought Siri, that they had a 2-year advantage that they squandered, and they have not invested enough in upgrading Siri over time. And so today what you have something which is just very weak. It's especially weak by comparison to ChatGPT and a ChatGPT advanced voice mode. I mean, you can do a select few things on Siri with confidence, and it's just it's incredibly disappointing.
Hey, Greg, how much do you think it's Apple's sort of privacy mantra that's causing them to not be successful?
I think that they've grown into a very big company that can't innovate. I think that's the problem. And
well,
the rest
I don't know.
The walls of the iPhone and the MacBook Pro and the Mac Air, and these are the same products essentially that they've been for a long time now. I mean, there are new versions of it, and you got your new Memoji and all that, but like really real innovation, like the iPhone was real innovation.
They created Vision Pro, the headset, and there's a lot of innovation in that. There's a tremendous amount of technology in that. The problem is it's too expensive, and it's not a mainstream product. It's not a product that people are going to buy because it's $3,500 or whatever. And they're going to
try it in the store, though.
What?
It's awesome to try it in the store.
Yeah. But I mean, the point is that there's real innovation there. They're capable of it. They're just making some poor product. They just really overestimated demand for that. There's a certain kind of arrogance there. We're Apple. We're creating the better version of this. People are going to buy it, but people didn't buy it. And so now they have to like take that technology and build the cheaper, more accessible version. And they have to figure out, I mean, AI is critical to all products going forward, all electronic products. So they have to figure this out. Even if they don't build a better version of Siri, they've got to figure out how to integrate AI as a fundamental part of the user experience in everything that they do going forward. And if they can't do that, that's going to hit their bottom line. It's going to hit their valuation. It's going to hit their sales. And I said this before, but I mean, Tim Cook has been a phenomenal CEO from an investor standpoint. Not as much, not a visionary like Steve Jobs. Very competent, very capable leader who has made that company incredibly valuable. But now, it feels like there's a little bit of shakiness there, and it's unclear, how they get from here to where they need to go.
Especially when you look at it and you've got Google, who's just announcing AI model after AI model, Microsoft doing the same. I mean, where's Apple in this?
Well, they're doing stuff at the margins. They're not doing anything they underestimated demand. They underestimated the importance of this as the next phase of market development, and they sort of felt like they could take their time with it. I think there was a certain kind of smugness there. It's like, well, we're Apple. We don't have to play by everybody else's. Yeah, we don't have to play by everybody else's rules. We're going to do the Apple version of everything, but they haven't been able to do that. They haven't been able to bring it to market.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, related to this is that the Washington Post had an article this week talking about how the AI spending boom can have real consequences for the U.S. economy. And you have companies like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Meta. Together, they're dropping $350 billion this year on AI data centers, chips, infrastructure.
NVIDIA is also in the mix there.
NVIDIA is also in the mix, exactly. And economists are saying that the spending spree could turn into GDP growth of 0.7 percentage points, which equals close to $200 billion in economic output for each year. So interesting, metrics when they forecast it out. A lot of assumptions, I'm sure, built into those numbers. But this kind of ties back to some of the previous episodes that we've had talking about how AI is going to supposedly create more jobs than it's going to wipe out.
This involves a lot of data and sort of empirically based speculation. My sense is that the spoils of AI are not equally distributed. That's what it seems like. That there's a concentration of, there's a lot of value that's being created by people using AI, and a lot of companies are gaining revenue efficiencies, whatever. But in terms of like the revenue coming off of AI or the direct financial benefits, that's pretty concentrated in a relatively small group of people. It's great if it does grow GDP. Hopefully that benefits more people than what I'm speculating. But and I think this is also why the government doesn't want to regulate them at all, and why you have states now trying to step in and do regulation where the federal government wouldn't. They want to, Trump wants to allow sort of unfettered growth and development for AI, which is not a bad impulse, but there's going to be many consequences to that are unforeseen. Perhaps job displacement, perhaps pollution, environmental consequences, strains on the power grid. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But certainly, it's propping up the stock market, and
And
right now
there are still trillions of dollars sitting on the sidelines. There are trillions of dollars, multiple trillions.
And where are those trillions located currently?
They're located. They're in bank accounts. They're in people's homes that they could leverage. I mean, there's a lot of what do they call it?
Untapped
and uninvested money in this country. And that's why the stock market continues to go up, because people are like, well, wait, maybe I should get in now. It's not too late, because there's just massive amounts of money still uninvested. So
there's value being created. I mean, the value that these companies are created that you're investing in continues to go up and up. I mean,
So there's still a runway. I don't think, it's not like the system's going to run out of money anytime soon.
Right, but we as a society, though, should be concerned about what many of these impacts, and should try to maximize the likelihood that the benefits will be distributed rather than sort of concentrated in a very small class of companies and owners.
the interesting thing for me my takeaway on this was that they're saying that this is going to have a 0.7 percentage points growth, which is $200 billion of economic output for the year. In my opinion, that's actually seems small.
It is small,
right?
Well, maybe it's a conservative estimate.
$10 trillion.
It could be, but to me, this is we've already gone from, we talked about Apple and Nvidia and some of these companies just in the past 2 years. I remember when Apple became the first company to become $1 trillion company, just recently. Now they're a $4 trillion company. Trillions of dollars in Nvidia and Microsoft. And, it's not just a one and done. A lot of these companies have just massively grown in their valuation, and obviously valuation and GDP are different, but where this becomes compelling is new jobs that it will open up. And maybe we even have a special focus on what jobs they will open up in a future episode, because I think there's a lot of questions about this. There's a lot of hand wringing going on about AI automating jobs out, but it'd be interesting to dig into what jobs it's going to create and what that actually means on a practical level.
To put that 200 billion into context, the US GDP is nearly $30 trillion.
Yeah.
Very much.
Well, all right. Well, good episode, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for listening here. We will carry on next week, and we will see you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Annie.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Have
you.
a great day.
You too.